songwriters, we always are in the songs in which we write, even when we're writing from somebody else's perspective.
In a depressive state, how long will I feel this way?
When people tell musicians to shut up and sing, there are a lot of reasons why I take offense to that, but one of them being that we're world travelers. We see more of the world than most people. If anything, we have a unique perspective to stand up and say something.
The guy you worked with on your solo album, your debut album, is Jimmy LaFave.
Got me lost inside a shovel. You worn out American dream.
Once I knew he was there, I just went, okay, all I'm doing is singing to Jimmy, I'm singing to my friend.
Hello, Jaimee.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing fine, and you?
Nice, I'm doing okay. It's, just living in the pandemic, but
Good to see
okay
you.
overall.
I love Rescue. Title song is great. I mean, it's so warm. It fits with the word red, I would say.
There was a darkness in that house I felt it. Chill my bones, saw your mother at the kitchen.
When did you write that one? Do you still recall when you wrote the song?
I do. It was 2014. I had been invited to be a part of this thing called the Tertulia, which occurs quarterly at a local venue in Austin. And they bring together poets and prose writers and songwriters to present a piece based on a prompt or a theme. And we're given 7 days from the time we receive the prompt until when we can perform it. And in the middle of that week, I was driving around San Antonio with a friend of mine, and he's kind of very directionally challenged. And I noticed he wasn't using his GPS. And so I asked him how he knew the city so well, and he told me that his first wife was from there. And I thought I knew this person pretty well, and I was not aware that there was a first wife situation. And so he proceeded to tell me about this girl, and when I was 17, I fell in love with this girl, and she took me to her house. You know, it was pretty rock and roll, but I wanted to meet her family. And of course, he walks into the house, and everything in the house is red. Everything that could possibly be red was red. And the topic that I had received for this prompt, or the prompt I received, was not as bad as it looks. And of course, that kind of ended up being the story that my friend told me about, this really creepy house, this strange meal he was served, and his desire to save her from this insane situation, which of course, she was kind of just as crazy as the situation from which she came, so it didn't work.
I'm gonna save you, I'm gonna save you, Red Rescue, Red Rescue. I'm gonna
And I didn't realize till after the record was finished and that had been chosen as the title track, and of course it's at center of the record. When I wrote that song, I am telling somebody else's story, but of course as a songwriter, I think songwriters, we always are in the songs in which we write, even when we're writing from somebody else's perspective. Yep. But at the end I sing, how am I going to save you when that darkness lives in you too? And I didn't realize that that was the central theme of the record, that I was actually singing that to myself.
How am I gonna save you? How am I gonna save you when that darkness lives in you too? How am I gonna save you? How am I gonna save you?
And I have heard that the family that owns the Red Rescue house now has a copy of the record.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Do you always need to experience things like this to write a song? Are you able to start sitting on your butt, write a few lines, make some music to it, and change it into a song? Or does it need to be like this? Do you need to experience something before you can write it?
Part of songwriting, I believe, is just magic. There's a thing that happens that comes through me that I'm truly not sure of exactly where it's coming from, but I'm happy to ride the lightning. But I definitely think that whether or not I've personally experienced every bit of it is irrelevant. I mean, we're not journalists as songwriters. We're, like you said, we're storytellers. Yeah. And the power of being a songwriter is that in the story, we're the narrator. So the narrator might be me in a song, but it's a different version of me. It's a version that in some way I have control over, or the song informs me of its control.
Like the Oklahoma roses flower,
On the record, there's a song called Forever. I was really interested in the state of Oklahoma at the time, and I started researching the state flower of Oklahoma, which is this rose that changes color in the season. And so I had never seen that rose. I never had the experience of it, but I was able to put that into this song. But I think what's deeper, if you take the elevator down, what's underneath all of that is experiences I've had. How could I not bring my own experience or things that I've witnessed and have been empathetic to into the work?
Even though it's been a warmer winter, still the petals change their dark.
One of the benefits of being a musician and being able to travel, and even for me, I mean, I didn't get the first stamp on my passport until 2 years ago.
Okay.
But that was my first experience, and music was the thing that brought me to the world. And musicians, because we get to see the world, I think especially Americans are pretty bad about traveling outside of the United States because we do have such a big, beautiful country to explore, but they don't have this exposure to other societies where there are other ways of life that work and that are incredible and that help the people of the country that aren't just fed towards greed. When people tell musicians to shut up and sing, there are a lot of reasons why I take offense to that, but one of them being that we're world travelers. We see more of the world than most people. If anything, we have a unique perspective to stand up and say something.
In a depressive state, how long will I feel this way? Is it forever? In my mind prisoner, will I be okay? Will I ever be okay?
This is the guitar. I did get this guitar, the acoustic Gibson J45. I think about 4 months after I got sober. And that has been the guitar where I've written a lot of songs on, and it's been kind of my one steady acoustic guitar for the past 6 years.
You were talking about a more than red period in life when you were drinking a lot, when you were not sober.
I was 19 when I moved to Austin, and I came from a small town in Texas where at the time there wasn't an independent music video, there wasn't an independent record store, there wasn't an NPR station, any type of independent radio.
Yeah.
So when I moved to Austin and I got to be around a whole group of creative people that were playing gigs and making records and producing records, it was like I stepped into this world of creativity. And so what I did every night was I sat outside, and in the way that I imagined Guy Clark and Townes Van Zandt and young Steve Earle, I felt like the young Steve Earle, like sitting on the edges, like watching everybody play these songs and participating and playing songs until the sun came up. You know, there was a part of that that felt magical to me. And I think at the time drinking felt such a part of it, a part of that experience. But of course, I don't need that to be creative, and I don't need to be drinking to be staying up all night having these experiences. But I think it just kind of came from a sheltered Baptist environment going into the big city. But there are things about those nights that were magical because it was the first experience.
Will I ever be
The guy you worked with on your solo album, your debut album, is Jimmy LaFave.
I see no refuge for the weak. I see no handouts for the poor. I see no sense of satisfaction. And all the ones who just endure.
Can you see, I've got this, I don't know if you can tell, but this poster behind me,
Yeah.
it's Jimmy walking on the bridge.
Oh, great.
That was from the last show that he did at the Paramount, where we all paid tribute to him. It was, I guess he died on a Sunday, and it was Thursday that we had that show, and he got on stage and sang Goodnight, Irene with all of us.
Whoa.
It was, I don't know if you've seen the footage from that, but it was the most powerful experience I've ever had on stage. And he chose what everyone would sing and when everyone would be in the show. And I kicked it off. I sang his version of Restless Spirits, which was written by Bob Childers. I was so terrified because one, it was the Paramount, which is a massive venue in Austin. And everyone else, of course, these are people that are my heroes. A lot of people which I discovered through Jimmy LaFave, like Gretchen Peters. And so I was like very nervous. And then I heard that Jimmy was in the room because he was so ill at that time. It was like, is he going to make it or not? And once I knew he was there, I just went, okay, all I'm doing is singing to Jimmy. I'm singing to my friend. But at the end of the night, Jimmy had, at that point he was in a wheelchair and he had sung. And I just remember looking and beaming, not seeing how sick he was, but just seeing that this is my friend and he's singing, he's on the stage and he's here. And I was just like overwhelmed with like love and gratitude for being able to hear him sing one more time. And after it was over, Ray Bonneville, another artist, and I were standing together on the edge of the stage, and we just kept looking at this blank spot where Jimmy was. Like kind of when you see a shooting star in the sky and you keep looking at that spot in the sky, knowing you're not going to see it again, but you just have this like hopeful thing. Yeah. It was incredible. Yeah.
It's very emotional, by the way.
Oh.
It's very emotional.
Yeah.
Wow.
With the rich circling like vultures, picking all the buckets clean. Don't you give me your phony smile. Don't you tell me no more rules. How many people will you trample down before you're finally through? Come on, face your situation. All the sadness that it brings. You got me lost inside a shuffle. You're worn out American dream.
Have you been able to write new songs, new material over the past 6 months during Corona, or did you become anti-active?
Well, the first month, I shut everything down. All I did was watch movies that I missed over the past 2 years, like reconnected with friends, learned a lot of stuff about live streaming and sound, and just did a lot of that stuff, normal life stuff. I mean, I was just in pajamas, I think, for a month. But then I started writing again. I was able to, a lot of what I've done actually is taken songs that I started maybe 3 years ago and some earlier this year, where I felt like the song came in before I had enough life experience to finish it. So a lot of songs that I started writing in 2017 after Jimmy died, or during the process when Jimmy was dying in 2016. And in Austin, we lost a lot of people. Mm-hmm. Worldwide, we lost a lot of, Tom Petty and Prince, just icons, heroes. And so I'd started writing from this place of grief. But I feel like there was something that kicked in after the pandemic where I was able to tap into this grief that was so beyond my own suffering. There was a part of this kind of collective sorrow. And so I was able to take a lot of songs that I started and finish them and put them together in a sequence where now I'm making steps to record a new album. So I've sent some songs to some producers, and I'm kind of just finalizing those details and figuring out who I'd like to work with for the next record, which is really exciting. I'm really proud of this batch of songs, and I'm glad that I didn't give up on them. Sometimes when a song comes, it's easy if you don't finish it within a certain amount of time just to say, maybe the song isn't meant to be. But then there are people like Leonard Cohen that held on to songs for years and years and years and worked on them until they were correct. And so I just kept thinking of Leonard and kept feeling this pull, like this song isn't finished with me. It wants to be completed. And I'm glad I honored that.
Where are you now? Where are you now?
when I see the songs and when I listen to the songs on the album, there is a great variety of sounds. And some songs are band versions, other songs are the smaller ones. And I think, well, for instance, Where Are You Now is a great goodbye song at the end of an album, of course. Are you going to use the same structure?
I don't know yet. I love the idea of exploring. I mean, I will say the difference between the last record and what's going to happen with this record is with the last record, I had a band that started out as a 4-piece that grew into a 7-piece band. And we spent a lot of time playing these songs live. I mean, we had different residencies. We played a lot. And it was really fun to go in and kind of capture some of that. And what Craig Ross, the producer of Red Rescue, was able to do is I have some songs that are very country, and this one's very rock and roll, and this one is very folky. And so I really need a producer that helps me figure out how to connect those pieces together sonically, especially with that first record. And I think Craig did a great job of that. With this record, a lot of these songs that I've written, half of them are written in Austin when I had a roommate. And I get inspired very late at night. So sometimes I'm curled up with my guitar trying not to make enough sound as to wake my roommate, you know. And a lot of these songs over the past 2 years, I've been opening for Mary Gauthier live as a solo act, which is a completely different skill set. In fact, it felt like starting over in a way. I can rock and roll and I can lead a band, but I had to learn about just being alone on stage with me and a guitar. And I think it made me a better songwriter because it made me go, wow, completely just talking about me on stage is really boring. And like I hate that. I don't want that, you know. It's really annoying. But it also taught me that, okay, if all I have is my guitar and my voice, like as a woman, I really want to be taken seriously as a songwriter. I don't want to be known as a chick singer. So I very much shied away from using my voice in really big ways because I don't want to draw the attention to my voice. But if all I have is my guitar and my voice on stage, I need to use that. So with this upcoming record, one of the things that I'm really excited about is I have mostly played these songs alone with an acoustic guitar. So I'm excited to bring a producer in that can help me figure out the instrumentation, what is going to serve each song best.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to see what happens. I love not knowing.
Where are you now?
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Great talking to you.